As usual, just pause the video as I go through, hover over everything I'm using to catch it all. But I've definitely updated this build, and I wanted to try this control point because this control point gave the first version I did of it, where I used crit damage and crit chance instead, stacked up all the way on it, and it gave him the most trouble. He barely could even complete it, and he burned through all his armor kits and everything. And the same thing happened too, because I was pretty much the only one doing the control point. Like, I summoned my allies, and then your allies are like a 50-50 with this control point. I've noticed sometimes they just don't help at all, and you're forced to do it almost entirely on your own, which is what it felt like here. So it also could tell, like, I was having to use cover more because of that than I did on that other control point video I did when I first showed this build, or the second video on this build. No, yeah, the first video on this build, which was the last one. That control point, the Jefferson Tower, was much easier. Also because it's more in the open, so I have more movement freedom, and then also my allies actually showed up, during the fight. So I never used cover in that one, but I had to use it here. But it confirms to me that this guy is definitely not like a pure tank. Like, he is not my Foundry tank. My Foundry tank never has to use cover anywhere he goes. The only time I use cover on him is brief spurts of it on legendary difficulty. But other than that, it's like never ever, pretty much. And this guy would definitely not be able to solo legendary, from what I'm seeing. At least he would struggle way more to try and complete it. And I mean, if you do the math, I know why. It's like, first off, I'm using a striker shield, not a bulwark shield, so I don't have a very durable shield. I mean, the Vanguard helps with it, especially when I'm soloing and I can time Vanguard, since I can ignore the team buff it gives. So Vanguard definitely helps. Vanguard's perfect for a Crusader type shield, because they're so much more frail than a bulwark, that having those few seconds of invulnerability sometimes can literally double how long the shield lasts when it's taking a heavy beating. So yeah, it's very good for striker shield, but it's just way more frail than bulwark. And then what else? I have 24% less protection from elites, because I'm missing 2 of those attributes on this version. Or actually, no, 26%. Yeah, I'm missing 1 attribute, but then I'm not using the survivalist tree. So I don't have the 10% protection from elite from survivalist, and I'm missing another 12% on it. And then, so both those combined definitely affect, although they're not the biggest thing, but the biggest thing, of course, is just not having Foundry at all. Like, not having Foundry with the bulwark shield, that combo is really the big driver of why I feel so much more frail in the open. Not that I feel frail. Like, this guy, he's definitely better at soloing than my striker build gunner dude is, who's also not, and he has 5 armor cores too, and also uses fixer drone, and he can solo heroic, but he struggles. And then he honestly can, he struggles a ton trying to do a heroic stronghold, which is what I'm going to do on this guy next. Tidal Basin heroic with directives. My gunner build with striker and 5 armor cores, Bullet King, he can do it, but I remember he died a couple times trying to get to the end, and then when he got to the end, I gave up and switched to my Foundry loadout to finish it, because of the 4 elite sniper bots that spawn at the same time at the very end. They are the boss, actually, not the boss. The boss is the 4 elite sniper bots. But thankfully, especially because they're elites, they're yellows, my Foundry tank build, he laughs at that. He doesn't struggle at all at the end of it, and doesn't really struggle much soloing it either. But my gunner dude struggled way more. And yeah, so I already actually did that. That's going to be the next video I'm going to upload after this one. And let's just say this build was able to do it, but he struggled. Not as much though. It more felt like a challenge, but not bang my head against the wall trying to complete it like it feels on my striker build, because you have to be so much more pinpoint and check your flank so much more when you're on a striker build. But this guy, he was able to do it faster too. And when he got to the end, he actually didn't struggle. He struggled a little bit more getting to those sniper bots, actually. But the sniper bot, now, it was still a challenge. Like, he couldn't just stay out in the open like my Foundry tank guy could, and he struggled a little bit with the sniper bots. But you'll see, he still was able to overcome it relatively well, with actually the flamethrower actually coming in clutch with tip of the spear, because it really helped him shred a couple of them quickly. Which you really need to do, because if you don't kill at least one of them really quick, like, it's so hard. If you're not a pure tank, it's so hard to survive, because of course they're AI sniper bots with perfect accuracy the moment you pop your head out of cover, and of course they're going all around on different angles to flank you, and they're robots, so they go faster and they're tankier than humans. Like, it's just the worst sniper you could possibly, the worst sniper, like, a challenge you could ask for. Because honestly, I would take, well, the human snipers, they do those recon drones, I know. I'm not sure how much that helps them. But I mean, the sniper bots always hit you no matter what, it seems like, anyway. Anyway, I'll talk more about that in the next video. The point is, like, this guy, he could do it, and he feels like, solo-wise, he's like midway between. Like, he has an easier time than my gunner striker build, but a harder time than my pure tank foundry build. So in that sense, he's kind of like similar to my skill build, like my healer drone, striker drone, assault turret refactor guy, because he definitely has an easier time than my gunner build too. Like, my gunner build, my striker build has it the worst when I'm trying to solo. I feel like I struggle to survive the most on him. He can still do it, otherwise I wouldn't have made that build, because I'd like to make balanced builds that can still solo as well as group play, as well as, at least be able to solo heroic. As for soloing legendary, I don't really have that as a requirement anymore, because you really need a very specific build to do legendary content solo in this game. And then also just be very, like, you just have to play it a lot and just memorize spawn points and all that crap that I will never have time to do. Like some of the speed runners I see who make legendary look easy. The only reason they make it look easy is because their reflexes are much better and they have memorized the spawn points. But it really never has to do with their build, because when you see the build, it's like, okay, you're just good at this mission now, is what's happening. Because I'm using that build and I'm still struggling. So of course they'll say, well, it's all about skill, and you're right, but I would come back with, well, I have a life and I don't have time to get that good. And I'm getting older and my reflexes aren't as good. So I don't know how old some of these people are, but I know for a fact when I was in my 20s in high school, I was way better at reflexes in video games than the whole get good scenario people talk about all the time. Anyway, enough of that. I'm going on a tangent like I always do. But point is, really love this build. Even in solo, I have to use cover more. But that also, I was thinking about using whatever the Emperor Guard's knee pads that give +1 armor regen. I thought about getting those and not using Catharsis. But when I thought about it, I would have only done it if you could add protection from Elite onto it, but you can't. If I could add protection from Elite onto it, so I would get another protection from Elite buff and get another 1% base armor regen, that combo would be better than Catharsis, I think. But the fact it only gives me 1% armor regen and nothing more, even the buff, like, it gives skill duration, which is like, okay, that helps my fixer drone a tiny bit, but that's it. Like, that's okay. Skill duration is like nothing. So really, it's just the 1% armor regen that it gives. And that's not enough to justify not using Catharsis. So then the other thing I considered was using an improvised piece that could give me protection from elites and also give me repair skill instead of incoming repairs, which I think helps my fixer drone a little bit better too, so that it probably would offer at least a tiny bit more armor regen from the fixer drone, as well as give me 12% protection from elites, or 13%, whenever I finally get around to doing that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to start soloing like Summit Legendary for mods to finally get the 13% at some point, because I've never seen one drop ever, even on Legendary, but I haven't done it like actively trying to farm for it yet. So Like, you know, in my previous video when I talked about the best difficulties to play on, you know, grind-wise in the game, I still stand by what I said for the most part, which is if you're in a team heroic and if you're soloing challenge difficulty, because the loot difference is not much different between heroic or challenge difficulty. But when it comes to gear and skill mods, like those mods attachments to your gear, legendary actually tends to sometimes become a requirement. However, I've seen max rolls come even on challenge difficulty. Like challenge countdown will sometimes drop max roll gear mods. But it's very rare though, and I've never once seen a protection from elite. So I'm still kind of convinced now you might have to go to legendary to get certain loot like that. So that would be one caveat I'd add to that previous video, is like legendary actually does become somewhat necessary but only for a very, very specific like set of items for a very, very, very tiny buff. So it's like the last thing you do, pretty much. And then when you get it, then there's even less reason though to play on legendary anymore, except just for the challenge, which is pretty much the only reason I play it. Anyway, like, so as I was saying, I considered improvised piece, but yeah, 12, like another protection from elite buff, it's not good enough for catharsis, because you'll see, especially in my title basin video, because since I use cover more, when I use cover on this guy, which I need to use in solo more, it makes Iron Lung more useful. That's another reason why I have Iron Lung, because sometimes I really just can't justify going out and using my flamethrower, even if I have the ammo for it, if I'm soloing, like on heroic, much less legendary if I ever do that. So Iron Lung combo with Pyromaniac becomes useful for that reason, and Iron Lung has good range to it. But also catharsis, because catharsis still helps me when I'm moving around, but it helps me the most when I'm just stationary the whole time and taking damage while I'm stationary and behind cover, because then I'm taking less damage because of the cover, but then the damage I do take is activating the catharsis healing, so I'm able to just stay out and keep unloading into someone. So like the minigunner dudes, for instance, they're more of a threat to me when I'm in the open actually, but when I go behind cover and I start unloading my Iron Lung into them and then switching to pyro and just rinse and repeat, like they're actually quite easy, very easy if there's just one at least shooting me, because the catharsis alone just starts out heals the damage I take. So another reason why catharsis is so good, because in solo it helps me when I'm behind cover a ton, which I need to use sometimes on this guy. But yeah, this guy I would like rate as like a very good tank build, but not a pure tank, and a decent DPS actually, like definitely better DPS than my pure Foundry build because of the signature weapon use, honestly, and the burning combo. So that actually helps. His DPS is not too bad because he can usually end an elite, and one roll of the flamethrower and the pyromania can usually end one elite immediately. And then also I'm a red killer. Like a red enemy I just will drop immediately because of the flamethrower. Because it just takes, I really love my flamethrower in missions with like red enemies, because I just switch to it, shoot 4 times, activate the burn, and they always drop. And I just go and rinse and repeat. And you know, I farm every 60 seconds, I get 20 ammo for it, which is equal to like 5 red enemies if I'm conservative with it. So yeah, really love that. It can also sometimes be enough to just outright kill a purple enemy too. So yeah, definitely learning that the signature weapon damage is quite good. And another reason why the crit damage crit chance was pointless on this build, because that was not helping my signature weapon damage. I've noticed the only thing that helps its damage is just pure weapon damage, not crit chance or crit damage. And so that's all the more reason to just get more survivability through armor regen on this build. Anyway, I'm going to stop now. I'll talk more in the next video. But yeah, definitely loving this build. Oh, but one last thing, because I bet some people might be asking, well, wait, you just got done talking about how your pure tank Foundry build is better for soloing and all this stuff, and yet you have an easier time all the time on him. Yeah, that's true. So then it's like, well, then what's the point of using this guy? Well, I mean, what's just like my gunner dude, it's because he serves another purpose. It's like, yes, I want to make sure he's still pretty good in solo, which he seems to be here. even though he's not the best at it, but he can still at least do it quite well. But again, he does offer a little bit more DPS than my pure tank build, which can help a team more. But even more on that point, it's all the other stuff that he helps his team with. Like Vanguard alone with 6 armor cores is a huge buff to your team. Also in Countdown, he actually gets even tankier because Vanguard gives me armor too in Countdown. So it's kind of interesting. In Countdown, he actually becomes a better tank. He's already a good tank without it, but yeah, he becomes an even better tank in Countdown. I still wouldn't say he's as tanky as my Foundry dude in Countdown, but definitely higher up just because of having the extra armor buff on him. And then yeah, another thing that's just, it's the best team buff in the game, period. And especially, like, I think it's the best team buff in a 4-player team when it doesn't apply to you either. But then in Countdown, when it applies to you as well, and then there's 8 people, and it buffs all 8, and you can keep it on them almost the whole time, then yeah, it's easily the best team support buff in the game. So he offers that for one. He still has Catharsis, so he's still doing that as the Foundry build is, which can sometimes help teammates, especially when I'm reviving people and I'm dropping healing clouds on them to get their armor back up. And then tanks are supposed to be reviving people. So Catharsis helps you survive reviving, of course, but also helps you get the teammates' armor back up when they get up. Especially because the armor regen you give your teammates is based on your armor. Because if you read Catharsis' description, it's percentage based. So the more armor you have, the more regen it gives you. But that also applies to your teammates because it's using your armor from that percentage that applies to teammates. So if they have less armor than you, it's more than 5% for them. So it might, like a DPS build, it'll get them back up. I've seen, like, within a couple seconds, it'll get them back up to full. So yeah, that's one thing. Vanguard's another thing. And then the most important thing is just Firestarter with infinite burns. Because I get 10% allies attacking enemies that are in close range to me get another 10% damage buff. My Striker Shield applies a damage buff to allies behind me. So that combo is helping my ally damage too sometimes. But also, it's just the infinite burns. Burns is one of the best, if not the best status to apply to enemies in this game, since damage over time, yes, that's more of just a bonus. It's really the fact that they stop shooting, they're no longer a threat during it, and they're more vulnerable because it's not as good as in Snare where they just stand still, but also they're moving erratically and they're not, like, it kind of shuts down their AI intelligence, like, deliberately, so that they're not, like, knowing, oh, I gotta go to this flank, I gotta go to this flank, I gotta go to this cover to flank this player. So they're no longer doing any of that either. So they're and it takes them out of cover all the time too. So it just makes them open as well. So yeah, one of the best debuffs to add, and I'm able to just constantly add it. Even if I don't have Flamethrower, I have Iron Lung, which can also, Iron Lung alone can keep at least a single target on fire almost the entire time. If we're like against a boss enemy and I may not have Flamethrower, or I want to conserve my Flamethrower ammo for later, then I'll use Iron Lung. And I may not even switch to Pyromaniac, because again, my concentration will, since I'm not a DPS build anyway, my concentration will just be on keeping the boss on fire. So emptying Iron Lung and reloading and shooting again to apply a fire within another couple seconds after it goes away on him is just the perfect thing. But obviously in groups, or in groups of enemies, then when I use my Flamethrower, oh yeah, like the amount of fire, enemies on fire I'm activating constantly is of course helping my whole team constantly. So all that combined serves to make this I think one of the best team support builds. And also the fact he's still a tank adds to the team support, because on top of all that he's tanky enough to also usually survive while reviving people, still play the part of a tank when he needs to play it. So yeah, that's really the combo that I gets to, is he's like one of the ultimate support builds, especially in Countdown, when Vanguard's really good, and then during Extraction, being able to have an infinite Flamethrower and have max ammo ready to go at the end of every extraction, so you can just immediately set all the hunters on fire and then set all the groups of enemies coming down the helicopter on fire. Like, it just helps everybody.